evening. You're watching TDM Talk Show. We have a very interesting guest for tonight. He is a world-class filmmaker, and he is the director of the Empire Hotel, which is being featured at the International Film Festival, Macau. From Portugal, let's welcome Ivo Ferreira. Good evening, Ivo.
Good evening, Ferreira.
You have this movie which is being featured here. It's called Empire Hotel. Tell us about it. How did that come about?
It's a project that I had for some time. It was somehow it's a collection of memories that I collect for the last 20 years since I arrived to Macau in 1994. It's the same area where I did part of my first film, my very first film, that I did part of a feature film, that I did a short film. So I keep on going to the same place somehow. There's a producer that says that filmmakers usually they always make the same movie. I try to make it different, but somehow it's true that I came back to the same area again, which is actually the place where the first place I met in Macau, because it was the place I started living. I went to a guest house. I lived there for 3 weeks, and I was quite young and naive, and I took a while to realize what was happening around me, what was happening inside the hotel that I was living, which had a kind of a life parallel to the normal hotel life, and that I took some time to understand. So this is a kind of yes, it's a kind of a collection of memories, but it's not a Macau. People say, "Oh, this is Macau, not Macau." It's not a reality. It's a reality that I create my own reality. So I was really nervous yesterday with this presentation, with this screening in Macau. Well, first, it's a bit weird. I feel like a guest at home. But I thought that people would be very critical and they would be a bit mad at me, because
why mad at you?
on my first film, that it was quite yes, welcome in Macau, but people here in Macau will think that okay, what is Macau, what is not, and they expect that movies, that the film will correspond to the idea of Macau. And yes, it will be very easy for me to, it didn't happen, but I'm here for a long time. So yes, I like the film, but Macau is not exactly that. And that doesn't pretend to be anything except the world of the film.
Right. And what was it like to finally show it here in Macau? Last night, and you were there, and you looked like all smiley and happy. How are you feeling that it's finally being shown here in Macau?
As I said yesterday, I really believe that it was the most important screening of the film somehow, and I think we passed the test. Most of the people like, even people that I thought that they wouldn't like, they at least they said they like it. So yes, and I keep on receiving text messages. So yes, I was very happy. Also very happy to see some part of the crew together, and some actors, Jess from the Philippines, and Soon and Cam from Hong Kong, so it was nice, yes.
How was the whole experience? This was shot in 2016. How was the whole experience? And I understand there are people that work with you which are from Macau, right?
Yes. Probably you have a very romantic idea of shooting. It's quite something really terrible. Like you don't sleep, you stress, and every day something goes wrong. So it's like a problem-solving situation, a daily problem-solving. And film, somehow film in Macau, it's more difficult than film in Portugal, for example. But it's curious because now in Lisbon, with all this tourism, some parts are getting also very difficult to film. But it's easy to cut the street here because the police doesn't cut the street for you to film, so they don't take the cars out for you to film. So it's all this is not apparently not very easy. Yes, welcome to have a crew on the street, but at the end of the day, there's something nice because how can I say? For example, yes, it's very easy to if you go to a small restaurant in France or in Portugal, and you when you go there and they say, oh, can I film here? And okay, this is the condition and so on. It's quite easy. Here at the beginning, it's like, but this is a restaurant, it's not a place to film. But soon, then, when you are on a neighborhood for some time, soon Macau people end up being very friendly. So the first moment they're a bit far from from the idea. They say, why am I going to have trouble? I mean, I have my
And
restaurant.
there's a lot of restrictions.
Yes, like, okay, give you a simple example. Like, when you want to film at 10 evening, you say, oh, but we close at 5. Yes, you close at 5, but you want to film at 10. Right. So we pay. And yes, as I told you, beginning was very tough, and but it was a very nice experience because we had the base of the film. I mean, the base, it means where you make up and so on, in the hotel that we were filming, even when we were filming around. Right. So the neighbors start seeing you in and out every day. They see how tough you work. They see to some stress. They see the stress on the crew because we are always running out of time. And and they end up getting closer and even like asking if, oh, do you need something? Yes, and Macau, it's difficult to film also because a lot of people on the streets.
And the permits too. The
permits. It's much easier than before because it's all concentrated in the Cultural Institute. But for example, you have everywhere you have these construction sites or renovations. So for direct sound, it's hell. But yes, at the end of the day, we end up.
And what was the inspiration behind it?
It's the inspiration. It's very clear that the film. I mean, the main set of the film, the hotel. A hotel is a place that you come in and out, you check in and check out, and I think there's a kind of an unfair role of Macau, which is also like we come and we go and we. But while we come and go, but we still create a community, and of course, I think for Macau people, it's a very big task to assist to such a fast renovation, fast changing city. So it's so this idea of the hotel is the idea of the change of the city. And yes, and it also has this, I think, has this atmosphere of the end of the melancholic Portuguese empire somehow. That's why also the name of the hotel.
Was the goal to show the different side of Macau? Because when people see Macau, it's the glitz and glamour, it's all casinos. But in your film, you show the different side of Macau, which is how it was back in the day. It's the culture. It's the fusion of the East and the West. Was it like your goal?
Yes, definitely. But it's curious that you say that. Some people also said that the film without the air curtains and the new cars could be something, be a period film like on the 50s. What I tried to do was like something dystopic. So it means that the film could be 50 years ago or in 10 years. But we still talk about changing. Your question was?
Did you have a consultant during the pre-production and during the production?
Of course. We first for Chinese opera, all this, it was like difficult because even though I came in and out for a long time, it's I still can't talk about Confucius. I can barely. I mean, we can go out and eat but I can have long conversations. So to understand the Chinese opera and the way of doing it, which was Mr. Kam, he helped a lot himself. And Tracy, which is Tracy Choi, she's a local director, which was also the assistant director for the film. So first, like I wrote the dialogues in Portuguese first, or in English, and then, excuse me, then we translate to Chinese, and then we translate to a kind of a character thing, and that was Tracy. Helping a lot, also helping a lot Margarida on the coach because we also had Portuguese actors speaking Chinese.
On point, really on point.
So this is all a big task. So consultant, yes, for Chinese opera and for the language itself.
And the government helped fund this film.
Yes, this was, I think what we've been seeing these last years is a big change for filmmakers, Macau filmmakers, and for, let's call it the film industry, which is actually more a handcraft than the industry, which was the Cultural Affairs Bureau, the IC, Instituto Cultural. He opened a support for short films, for feature films, first time in 16. and which is really, really important, even though if it's a very little money, like it's like a 1.5 million patakas, but still it's what you call seed money. It's very difficult to ask money for a film in Macau if you don't bring any money from Macau.
Right.
And so that was very important, I think, for everyone. That's when Tracy did a film, Kakong did another film, and Emily did another film. So this is part of the same first support. I hope this will keep on, and I hope the government will keep on investing. It's definitely very important. It's important also to do services here from outside, because then you have professionals, people working with crews. So then when local filmmakers want to film, then you also have professionals that you can hire for local films. So yes, this has, and then the FIC, Creative Industries Fund, also put some money on board, and the MGTO as well. The rest of the money comes from, well, big part from the Portuguese Film Institute. Right. RTP, a million from Portuguese public station. Okay. And then some hard money from
Lebanon.
Lebanese, Shortcuts International, that they always go on board. They always invest a little bit on my films, and with Luís, with Sonia Fúria, because this is a co-production. This is a real co-production between Portugal, Macau, and China. And also an investor, a Switzerland investor, Mr. Merkt, which is also used also to invest on my films and films produced by Sonia Fúria.
And how is it working with the whole cast?
It was a very interesting experience, because it's Macau actors, Hong Kong actors, different ages, Portuguese actors. Yes, my father, and yes, it was an interesting experience. I think it was maybe more demanding for sometimes for them than for me. For me, it's also difficult. Like, I'm filming in Mandarin and in Cantonese, so all these languages, all this thing was a bit different, and of course, it took some more time than if it would be in a language that we would all understand.
What's your favorite scene? There's a lot.
No, I don't know.
So much. But yeah.
I like some parts of scenes, sometimes not. Of course, there's a very big scene, which is a hotel room scene, which is a very big
Tension.
scene. Yes, and that's I don't know, it's like a 10-minute scene, I think. But I don't know, sometimes what I like more in the films are some moments. So also with my films, I like some moments. I don't know why in films sometimes there are some seconds that I find especially attractive, or that emotionally I get more involved, and it
invested.
It happens, you know. Sometimes I get emotionally involved on the same second of the film, and I see the film 10 times, and that's the moment that I get more emotionally.
And let's talk about the cinematography. It's on point, it's powerful, it's just perfect.
Also by Macau resident, Susana Gomes. I was very sad that she was not here yesterday to see how everyone talked about the photography. Everyone. She, for personal reasons, she has to be in Portugal now. But yes, I think there's I was saying that, okay, Macau sometimes is difficult to film, but it's also something, it's easy. It's like the atmosphere. You put the camera rolling, you do it properly, and then the atmosphere goes to there somehow. And yes, I think Susana, she did a great job. We discussed tones before, and yes, and then we shouldn't fight with the natural lights of the city, because they are very present. And if you walk at night on the streets, there are all these, for me, a little bit too yellowish lights. But you can't just change the light of the city to film a scene. Sometimes you do that, right, like on a street, but here it will be very, very complicated. So yes, she did something really interesting, which is we try to balance those lights with our lights, so then we could cut really some color and keep the energy somehow.
Okay, Ivo, how do you want this movie to be remembered?
I want you to remember the movie as you. I don't believe in like target audiences or. So I think the films should work inside each of the people who's watching the film. So what do you remember most in the film?
Oh, it's in the hotel. It's powerful. It's brilliant, actually. Especially it was done in low lighting. So I'm like, how did they manage to do this? And you'd see the background. It's really amazing.
So that's how I want you to remember the film.
It's really perfect. Yes. And did you ever want to be a filmmaker? Was it really your first choice growing up?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, my parents are actors, so I started acting and I started doing. I did the first film when I was 4. I did the Fernando Pessoa, a part of a very known poet. I don't remember. I have a photo. And yes, and I started filming very young because at the time the industry was small. TV and film was a little bit more side to side. Right. Even like the TV films they were doing in 16 mm and so on. And so I was easy to cast because they would go to the theater and I was every day in the theater, so I was easy to cast. And I did some stuff from the beginning. And for me, I was very, very involved in photography since very young. Like I had a studio at home since I was 12. And I saw stage since always. So I almost lived, I mean, I would go out from school and go to the theater. I wouldn't go home. Wow. So yes, photography and stage, maybe cinema somewhere. The first ever idea I had for a film when I was young, and there was some political things happening with an armed organization on the 80s, and I was very, very young, and this was the first time that I thought, okay, I want to make films. I want to make this film, and this is the film I'm doing now. So I took a while. I was very young. I think I was 8.
Wow. In an interview with the jury during the competition, they kept on telling us about their first time movies, like their first experiences. And they said it was very raw, it was organic, and it's something that's very special to them. For you, is it harder to get started and put your energy, or to be able to keep going?
I think it's always very hard because your expectations always go higher. So so it's hard first because you don't know much about. The first interview you did, I mean, sometimes we do things almost bluffing somehow because it's the first time, but that happens to everyone. In case of cinema, like, and if you're going to become a chef, probably you practice at home or to your friends. In making a film, it's not that easy, but yes, we still had like this handy cameras and so on. But I think, I don't know, I think what I'm trying to do is suffer less and doing it better. That's what I'm trying to, that's what I try to do. It's emotionally, it's terrible. I don't advise anyone to become a filmmaker because you're always suffering. First, you have an idea and you have to put the idea on the paper, and then you have to finance the film, and then it's a hell to finance the film. And then you start financing the film, and then there's a day that you say, you need this money. And then there's a day that you give up, okay, I will not look for that money, otherwise I'll never make the film.
So how do you keep fresh in terms of creativity or creating film? You don't get attached to specific characters or the storyline itself, but how do you keep fresh?
Maybe I don't keep fresh, no. I don't know, what inspires me are people. Yes, or people. So it's when like depends on the film. But now, when I'm researching now for this film, I'm interviewing people that were called terrorists in the 80s, and also I'm interviewing the ones who were the cops looking for them in the 80s. And more than the big story, I'm very interested on the details of what people were feeling at this time. So this inspires me, and then I start. Maybe I try to understand and know. I did Letters for More, which was it was a Berlin
Letters
competition, and it was and that film I interviewed the people who were there in the war at the time, and that really inspired me. And what's interesting is like people say, oh, it's amazing how you did it exactly as it was, and I was never in war, and maybe it was not similar at all, but somehow maybe it was the emotional side of that character that made him saw that it was exactly as it was. So I think it's always like an emotional drive, and I'm inspired in in life, in landscape, in light, and that's why I try to keep fresh. And of course, then literature, film sometimes, not much, dance.
Dance. Okay. How do you compromise as a filmmaker? How much do you have to compromise because of financial restrictions or business?
I compromise a lot for financial restrictions, but those are my only problems. Is time.
Do you think
time is money.
the film business is fair?
No, I think it's terrible. But we have to. I have to say that. Okay, of course, I have a lot of constraints because of money, and money is time. But both. I mean, the cinema that I work, it's a cinema which is really free. It's very free, and we should be really proud. Filmmakers should be really proud that when they can actually do things the way they want. And my experience are all very positive. Even now, for the TV series, I didn't wrote the TV series. I worked on the process, but I didn't do it myself. And I was somehow hired by a producer, which is my very good friend, who always worked with me. You also work with me on Letters for More, on this film, on script writing. But I have to say that even when I was asked, it was not my proposal when I was asked to do the job, but nobody then told me anything how to do. So yes, I think Macau filmmakers and Portuguese filmmakers and most of the European filmmakers and some of they should be really happy to be free.
Regardless of experience, what is that one mistake that most filmmakers make?
Make a film.
Okay.
To make a film, it's already.
It's a very refreshing answer.
No, it's to me, as I told you. I think the worst mistake is like when you are not happy, and you say, "Okay, move on," because then you'll pay that. You'll go home. You'll lose energy for the next scene, or for the next shot, or for the next day, and yes, and that's it's sad. And then if you don't know if you are doing better or worse because you know, or because you couldn't, or because. So yes, that's what I strongly advise young filmmakers, to be persistent and to follow an idea. And yes.
Last night we had to move from the Macau Tower to the Cultural Center because of the tickets. They're all sold out, and you got a very warm response from the local community. How do you feel about it?
I'm very thanked, and yes, I'm very happy. Of course, it happened. It happened with Letters for More that passed. It was screened on the Literary Festival in 2016. Actually, it was the first screening after Berlin. It was Macau. I was living here. I went to make the film, and I came back, and I asked the Match Factory, which is the world sales, look, please let me do this. And at the time was all, because the community is small somehow, but everybody, it comes on the news, so it's easy for people to have access to the information. And it was fully booked, and there were like some people fighting at the door, which I learned. I learned once with a producer that it's better to have 100 people outside fighting on a premiere than have an empty venue. So if people fight, it's good because they will talk about. And even if they get mad at you, but they will still talk about. So yes, this time at the end of the day, the festival, and we realized that that would have problems. And so we moved here, which I'm happy because also the screening here, it's quite good. The quality of the screening here, it's good, and the sound. And yes, and the venue was nice.
Thank you so much, Ivo.
Thank you.
Join us again for another episode of TDM Talk Show next week. And I'm your host, Karen Keith. Good evening.